I sent my mom an ultrasound photo. She replied, "Be a normal daughter first, then become a mother." I didn't text back. A week later, my boyfriend and I showed up for Christmas. We brought a thick folder. My mom went completely pale when she found out what was inside. Honestly, we weren't planning to come at all. I had already made peace with the idea that this would be my first Christmas dinner without my mom's forced toasts or my brother's judgmental glares from across the table. We had movie tickets. My boyfriend Marcus even booked a table at a cozy little pizza place where no one knew us and no one asked questions. But then, there was the folder. It sat on our table like an unanswered question. Like a letter you keep meaning to send but always tuck back into the drawer. And I realized, no, we're going. Because in that house I've been the quiet one for too long. The version of me that never spoke up. It was time to say something, even if the words were printed on paper. As we pulled up to the house, I found myself rehearsing their lines in my head. Word for word. Like a play I'd seen too many times. Same dialogue. Same cast. Only this time the understudy walked in without permission. My mom opened the door like we were late to opening night and had ruined the whole production. "I hope you're not here to cause another scene," she said before even saying hello. That last message was enough. Message, as in the ultrasound. The image of a growing life. But to her it was just more proof that she had a difficult daughter. "Merry Christmas," Marcus said dryly. We stepped inside. I didn't take off my coat. I wasn't ready to feel comfortable. Everything looked exactly the same as always. Lights, candles, a table straight out of a catalog, white linens, perfect plates, and not an ounce of warmth. My mom's holiday aesthetic is picture perfect with zero emotion. Feelings mess up the centerpiece. My stepdad was in the recliner watching TV as usual. He nodded to Marcus. Not to me. Some traditions never die. Tyler was flopped on the couch like he was born there. He looked me up and down and snorted. "Wow, no shame, huh? Showing up with a belly after everything?" I didn't respond. Marcus tightened his grip on my hand. "After what exactly?" he asked calmly. "Oh, don't play dumb," Tyler said. The whole family knows how Claire acted. It was disgusting. Mom was losing her mind from the stress. And now she's pregnant by some random guy and still has the nerve to show up. Some random guy? Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Tyler, that's enough," Mom cut in sharply. "I asked you to behave today at least." "Behave?" Tyler laughed. "She sends us an ultrasound like it's a party invitation. And now she's having a baby in her boyfriend's basement and we're supposed to clap." I walked to the table. The folder was still in my hand. "I didn't come here asking for help," I said. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" Mom said as she set a salad bowl down. "Another performance? Claire, this is Christmas. Not your personal manifesto." "I just wanted you to look at me," I said. "Not like a failed experiment that didn't go according to plan." Mom straightened. "We've always fought for you. You were a difficult child. After your father died, you changed. We saved you. We did everything by the book. And how did you repay us? Silence. Defiance. Now this pregnancy." "Wow," I said. "You make it sound like I stole your house." "Don't exaggerate," she snapped. Then with a glance at the folder, "What is that, anyway? Another accusation?" I didn't answer. I just sat down. Placed the folder beside my plate. Tyler snorted. "Let me guess, another list of complaints? Maybe a printed-out guide to how to speak to Claire without triggering her?" "I don't owe you any explanations," I said. "You want to read it, read it. But don't." Simple. Silence followed. Long enough that if a fork had dropped, it would have sounded like a gunshot. My mom looked at me like an actress who'd gone completely off script. "You're just making things worse for yourself," she said suddenly. "You don't understand. You're not ready for this. You can't even handle your own life, and now you're bringing a child into it. Worse," I said standing up, "would be going back to living under your control. I'm done asking for permission. Even if you still think I'm supposed to." My stepdad stood for the first time all evening. He looked directly at Marcus. "If you put her up to this, you should leave. Before it gets ugly." Marcus held his gaze. "I didn't put her up to anything," he said. "I'm just standing by her. The rest is her choice." My mom picked up the folder. Opened it. Just for a second. And in that second, everything shifted. Her face drained of color. She sucked in a breath. My stepdad rushed over. Tyler dropped his fork. I just stood there, watching, silent. You didn't, my mom whispered. You already filed this? Merry Christmas, I said. Marcus, let's step outside for a bit. It's getting a little stuffy in here. They stayed behind, reading. I walked out into the cold, into the backyard I used to hate. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. When I was 8, my dad died. It wasn't sudden, he'd been sick. He knew he was leaving. The last 6 months of his life were spent fighting the illness and trying to leave behind something that would protect me. He was the only person in my life who looked at me and didn't see a burden. He saw a person. Even when I drew on the walls with markers, he laughed. Even when I brought home a failing grade, he said, "What matters is that you tried." Once it became clear the treatment wasn't working, he started putting things in order. He wrote a will. He met with lawyers. He talked to an estate attorney about how to make sure my rights would be protected, even if my mom had other ideas. I didn't know it at the time, but he set up a trust. All his savings, the house, everything. It was locked away from me until I turned 25. No one, not even my mother, could touch it without a court order. He left it all to me. Because he knew she wouldn't always be on my side. After he died, the house went quiet. Not because of grief. Grief is loud. This was something else. The atmosphere shifted. My mom stopped being a mom and turned into a project manager. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a task. It didn't take long for Greg to show up. He moved in a couple of months later. Within a year they had Tyler. And I stopped existing as an individual. Or at least that's how it felt. My mom started calling me withdrawn. Said I was resistant to change. That I'd become unstable after Dad died. Every attempt I made to express myself, art, music, writing, was brushed off as attention-seeking. But Tyler was sunshine. Tyler was our sweet boy. Tyler was their real child. When I was 14, my mom dragged me to a family therapist. All I'd done was spend too much time reading and not enough time pretending to be fine. They gave me a vague diagnosis, something about emotional instability. And just like that, my mom and Greg filed for guardianship. Officially, it was to make life easier for you. In reality, it was to control everything. I couldn't open a bank account. Couldn't sign up for classes without approval. Couldn't even go on a school field trip without a written explanation. I tried to push back. But my mom would say, "You know how you get. This is for your own good." Greg didn't say much. He just signed whatever she gave him. He almost never spoke to me directly. But he always backed her up. They couldn't touch the trust, but one day I overheard my mom on the phone with a man I didn't know. She said, "There's still a chance to gain control of the assets. If we can prove she's financially incapable." At the time, I didn't understand what that meant. Later, I understood it too well. My mom kept insisting I had nothing. That I'd be lost without them. And I believed her. Because when someone calls you too difficult, too unreliable, unfit for adult life, for long enough, you start to believe it too. Meanwhile, Tyler got everything. New phones. Trips. Lessons. A car at 16. He used to laugh at me and say, "Mom says you had another episode." He always knew he was the favorite. He never hid it. The only time I started to feel like a real person again was when I left home. At first, I moved into a rented apartment, with help since I couldn't sign the lease myself. Then I found a job at a library. But legally, I was still under guardianship. Every time I tried to sign a lease or fill out a form, they blocked it. "She's unstable," my mom would say. "She'll hurt herself if we stop supervising." And then, Marcus happened. We met at a charity event. I was volunteering. He was there with a university legal clinic that helped people who couldn't afford lawyers. We got to talking. I lied at first. Told him I was just helping out for fun. He didn't buy it. He asked, "Do you ever feel like your life keeps happening without your permission?" We kept talking after that. He didn't push. He just listened. A couple weeks later, he asked me to get coffee. As friends. We talked for 2 hours straight. At one point I realized, I wasn't waiting for the moment he'd try to fix me. Because it never came. He didn't see me as broken. He didn't flinch when I talked. He saw me. I'm not sure exactly when it became more than that. Maybe it was when he called me smart, for no reason. Not like it was a compliment. Just a fact, said gently. Like he actually meant it. Or maybe it was when I fell asleep on his shoulder and didn't wake up with a jolt. It didn't feel sudden. It felt like someone opened a window in a room that had been suffocating. Within a month he knew my story. Within 2, I had gone through an independent psychiatric evaluation. No pressure. No family connections. Just a licensed specialist with no agenda. The report was clear. I was fully competent. There was no reason for the guardianship to continue. Marcus helped me gather everything. Reports. Records. Emails. Legal forms. He even found evidence that my mom had tried years earlier to gain access to my trust by contacting an old lawyer friend. We built our case. Filed everything. And then we decided. We're not doing this quietly. No sudden court orders. No behind-the-scenes paperwork. We're showing up. On Christmas. We'll place the folder on the table. No yelling. No threats. Just a simple reminder. I'm not their project. I'm a person. When I stepped out onto the porch, the air felt too sharp, even for December. I folded my arms. Not from the cold, but because everything inside me was shaking. Not from fear. From freedom. It felt like my body didn't know how to exist outside the cage. Like it was still looking for the bars. Marcus stood next to me. He didn't say anything. Just looked at the house. The one that had kept me like a goldfish in a tank. Nice facade. Glass doors. Manicured lawn. And not a single breath of air. You sure they should be reading it alone? He asked quietly. That's the point, I said. No interruptions. No monologues over my voice. Let them sit with the facts for once. I leaned on the railing. That house, my dad built it from the ground up. With his own hands. He even poured the foundation himself. I remember how we pressed our palms into the wet cement near the back door. His handprint firm and steady. Mine crooked and small. He looked at me and said, "This is your house. Even when I'm gone. I promise." And he kept that promise. He left me everything, the house, the trust. All of it legally mine. But only on paper. Because after he died, my mother and Greg filed for guardianship. They ran the show. I was alive, but legally, I barely existed. The house was silent. No shouting. No slamming. No dramatic crashes or footsteps. Strange, actually. She's probably reading it out loud, I said. Old habit. She always thinks saying things louder makes them true. Marcus let out a small dry chuckle. Didn't reply. A few minutes later, Tyler came to the door. No phone in hand. That alone was a red flag. He looked at us with that face I've always hated. Half pity, half superiority. You actually did it, he said. You actually thought I wouldn't? I replied. He shrugged. Mom's freaking out. Says you ruined everything. Says we might lose it all. We. I repeated. Tyler, you've been living off my money. You drove my car. Your tuition was paid with my trust fund. And now it's we. I thought it was like family stuff, he muttered. Sure. When it's convenient. He left. And I realized I wasn't even angry. Not at him. Not at any of them. It's wild how fast resentment fades once you finally see things clearly. Marcus and I went back inside. My mom was standing by the fireplace like she might throw the folder in. But she didn't. Because she knew this wasn't just paper. It was a live grenade with the pin pulled. Greg sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor. He'd always been background noise. Now he was just part of the furniture. This isn't real, Mom said. Her voice shook, but she was still trying to hold herself together. This is fake. A manipulation. I sat down at the table. Come. No theatrics. No threats. The documents are signed, I said. The evaluation came from a licensed doctor with no ties to you. The court has already received everything. How did you know about the will? Mom shouted. You weren't supposed to. Be smart enough. Dad kept copies in 2 places. One with his old lawyer. The other in a bank safe I had access to at 25. Wiggly. Even under guardianship. Her face went pale. I knew exactly which part of the folder she'd reached. The will is explicit, I said. The house and trust are mine. No legal right of control for any guardian. Everything you did went against my father's wishes. And now it's going to court. We raised you. We took care of you, she screamed. You didn't care. You were silent. You were sick. I was a child who lost her father, I said. And you turned that grief into a diagnosis. Greg finally spoke. You don't understand what this could mean. The court rules. We won't have anywhere to live. I'm sorry, I said. But that's not on me. That's on you. This is betrayal, Mom whispered. You're destroying this family. No, I said, shaking my head. I'm just leaving it. Before it destroys me. Marcus stood beside me. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. I wasn't alone anymore. Not this time. You won't win, my mom hissed. We'll tell the court everything, your breakdowns, that incident when you... It's all in the file, I said. The therapist's report. The independent evaluation. Copies of your attempts to transfer funds. And the letter you sent the bank with a forged signature. We found everything. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It had weight. A kind of stunned, echoing silence that rang in your ears. I walked over to the fireplace. Looked at an old family photo. Me at 6, Dad holding me. We're both smiling. Looks like a perfect memory. But I remember that day. Mom had screamed that my dress was dirty and I was ruining the photo. Dad just picked me up and said, let's make it real. Not staged. I took the photo. Calmly. Slipped it into my bag. That was his will. My life. You treated it like your personal cash supply. But now it's over. You're killing us, my mom said. Her voice was quieter now. Almost small. No, I replied. I'm surviving. Finally. And we left. No shouting. No dramatic exit. Just the sound of the door opening. And the cold, clean breath of outside. Christmas. Silence. And me groan. The court process is still ahead. But the first step is already behind me. And there's no going back. At first there was silence. The kind that comes after a storm. Everything seems calm but the air is still buzzing. Marcus and I went home. He reheated some lasagna. I made tea. We ate in silence. He watched me with a cautious smile. I kept glancing at the stack of papers beside my laptop, like it was whispering, this is only the beginning. A day passed. Then 3. No calls. No texts. Even Tyler disappeared. For a moment I almost believed in miracles. Maybe they'd decided to give up. Maybe they were ashamed or scared. But no. Of course not. On the 5th day my phone rang. Unknown number. Arizona area code. Claire? It's Aunt Linda. Well, your mom called me. She was crying. She said you kicked them out on Christmas and filed a lawsuit? Is that true? I stood by the window watching the snow fall. Soft, clean, quiet. Aunt Linda, I said calmly, I'm sorry she chose to tell you that version of the story. But I'm not going to comment on it. Just know, it's not the truth. She said you've taken everything from them. That you're working with some lawyer to demand money. She says you're unstable. Thank you, I interrupted. But I think it's best if we end this conversation now. The next morning I got a message from a former coworker. Claire, I'm really sorry but your mom messaged me on Facebook. She said you're in danger. Are you okay? Then a text from an old friend I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Greg called me. Said something's wrong with your mental health. That Marcus is manipulating you. Just checking, are you safe? This wasn't just sabotage. This was a campaign. They were going on the offensive, reaching out to everyone they could. Relatives, old contacts, people I hadn't heard from in years. Eventually I opened social media. There was a long public post from my mom. No names of course. But full of specific details only someone close would know. When your own child, the one you gave your best years to, decides to destroy the family for the sake of an outsider, you start asking yourself only one question. Where did I go wrong? The comments were flooded with support. You're so strong. Hang in there. Praying for your daughter. I hope she wakes up soon. One woman added. My friend's daughter did the same. All because of some guy in TikTok. Marcus glanced over my shoulder. Well, guess we're officially part of a cult now. Congrats. I closed the laptop. You know what's worse? I said. They really believe it. They truly think I'm having another episode. Like this isn't happening because I'm finally okay, but because I've lost it again. They've been pushing that story for so long, Marcus said, taking my hand. They actually started believing it. Then it's time to disappoint them, I said. Officially. The next strike was sharper. My job called. First it was HR. Then security. Ms. Reeves, the HR manager said gently, we received a call from a woman who identified herself as your mother. She claimed you may be experiencing an emotional crisis. We're required to log that kind of report. It's just a formality, but... A formality to do what? I asked. We're not drawing any conclusions. We just ask that you speak briefly with someone from our employee assistance program. It's completely unofficial and won't impact your record. It's just for protocol. I hung up and laughed. Long and hard. Almost hysterical. Then I got up. Signed the paper. Met with the specialist. He was polite. Apologetic. It's clear you're in control, he said. But we have a process. I understand, I replied. So do I. Mine's in court. And then they showed up. In person. It was evening. We were eating dinner, just lasagna and tea again. The doorbell rang. I opened it. There they were. My mom and Greg. No warning. No invitation. As if this were normal. We want to talk, Mom said. Her voice was flat. She was holding something, a wrapped bundle. A gift? Papers? You have 2 minutes, I said, not moving from the doorway. Claire, please, she said. We've been thinking. Maybe you were right about some things. Let's just sit down. Talk this through. As a family. As a family? I said. You already had your family meeting. It's all over Facebook. Now please get off my porch. Greg stepped forward. You don't understand where this is headed. You've started a legal process. We have connections. Money. We can stop this. Or, we can make it worse. Marcus stepped out of the kitchen. If you don't leave, he said, I'll call the police. And yes, your visit is already recorded. They didn't leave immediately. Before turning away, my mom leaned in and whispered, You'll think this over. You know you can't do this on your own. 2 days later, I got a court notice. They'd filed a counterclaim. My mother was asking the court to declare me partially incapacitated for the duration of the legal process, citing emotional breakdowns, undue influence from a third party, and risk to a dependent child. The documents were printed on expensive paper, signed by an expensive lawyer, visually impressive, substantively empty, but loud. I sat with it in my hands, and for the first time since Christmas, I was scared. Not because they might win, but because they were speaking for me again. And their voices were louder. I'm tired, I whispered. I just wanted to breathe. Without screaming. Without having to justify my existence. Marcus placed his hand on my back. They don't speak for you anymore, he said. Now they're just yelling over you. We won't let them. And I knew this wasn't over. But I wasn't alone. And I didn't belong to them anymore. If they don't know how to let go, I know how not to come back. A week after we received my mother's countersuit, Marcus began gathering everything for court. He organized the full case file, the independent psychiatric evaluation, statements from a licensed social worker, screenshots of conversations, audio recordings of my mother insisting I was incapable of making decisions. He sent it all as a formal evidence packet to the court. This isn't just paperwork, he told me. This is your passport to a real life. The hearing was scheduled for late February. By then I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry and ready. My mother and Greg tried to delay things. They switched lawyers, filed motions, stalled. But the judge wasn't buying it. Even the court seemed tired of their games. I showed up to the hearing in a plain gray dress. No makeup. No jewelry. I wanted them to see me as I was. An adult. And unafraid. The judge, a calm, no-nonsense woman in her 50s, ran the hearing with quiet authority. We submitted our documents. I answered every question clearly. No nerves. No doubt. My mother didn't look at me. Greg sat there like he had a secret weapon in his back pocket. Their attorney tried to frame it all as a messy family dispute. But the judge wasn't interested in drama. He brought it back to the facts. And then she gave her ruling. The guardianship was terminated, effective immediately. I was declared fully competent. Any future attempts to interfere would be considered a violation of the law. I sat with my back straight, and for the first time in years I felt free. A week later, the court launched an investigation into their financial activity during the years they held legal control. They ordered a formal audit of the trust my father had left me. While I'd technically owned the trust, my mother and Greg had held access. And they'd used it, like it was their personal checking account. The results were staggering. The money had been spent on Tyler's college tuition, family vacations, home renovations, paying off Greg's personal debt taken out in my mother's name. The court saw it clearly. They'd abused the trust. We filed a separate claim for financial exploitation. And the court ruled. Greg and my mother were ordered to repay the misused funds. Plus a penalty. Plus all of my legal cost. That's when it came out they didn't have the money. The house I'd grown up in? They'd treated it like theirs for years. But on paper, it still belonged to me. When the guardianship ended, I regained full legal control. Marcus and I hired a property specialist to assess the house. It was a disaster. They'd taken out loans against it. Mortgaged it multiple times. The debt now outweighed the home's value. With legal help, I reclaimed the property. And then we made a choice. Sell it. Pay down what we could. Close the chapter. I didn't want to live there again. Too much history. Too much pain. Selling it felt like peace. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. From Tyler. An actual paper letter like it was 1997. No apology. Just blame. You destroyed this family. Everything we built. You chose a stranger over us. Hope you're happy because no sane person will stand by you now. I didn't respond. I put the letter in a box with court documents. Not out of sentiment. Just as a reminder of the past I don't need to revisit. My mother and Greg got divorced. He moved out soon after they lost the case. I didn't go looking for updates, but some news reached me anyway. She moved into a cheap apartment. Tried to get a job, for the first time in years. She told some relatives I'd betrayed her. But once the truth came out, many of them distanced themselves. A few even reached out to apologize. I didn't answer all of them. Not out of anger. Just because, not everyone deserves a second chance. Once I had full control over my inheritance, I started rebuilding my life. No revenge. No wasting money. Just reclaiming what was always mine. Marcus and I rented a small house on the edge of Portland. Not a mansion. Not a dream home ad. But it was quiet. And it was ours. I planted basil on the kitchen windowsill. Every day I breathed a little easier. I work remotely now. Teaching online courses, consulting, writing the occasional article. And I've started writing again. About life. About choice. About freedom. Marcus jokes that I should write a book. Maybe one day. On a shelf in our living room there's a photo of me and my dad. I'm 6 years old, smiling with my whole face as he lifts me into the air. Next to it, my ultrasound. My future child. A new life. No chains. I'm still learning how to live without fear. To quiet that old voice in my head that whispers, what if they come back? But now I know. They might try. But I'm no longer the same. They always said I'd fall apart without them. But the only thing that fell apart was the cage they built around me. Sometimes I still ask myself, was I too harsh? Maybe I should have let it go. Maybe I shouldn't have gone to court. Maybe I didn't need to open old wounds. But if I hadn't, they never would have learned one simple truth. I am not their property. What do you think? Did I go too far or finally far enough? If you enjoyed the story, hit subscribe.